welcome to this class. So we're going to paint this plum. I'm trying to limit my palette so I don't have so many colors like I normally would use. So for the plum, I mainly have like the ultramarine light and then quinacridone magenta. But if you feel comfortable adding more colors, I do suggest to use, for example, cobalt blue, which looks really, really pretty. For the leaf, I have green, sap green, and then imidazolone lemon. So whatever yellow you have that's kind of more like a primary yellow. I don't have my primary yellow because I ran out of that color. And Holbein's primary yellow in watercolor is imidazolone yellow. We are going to wet the plum first and then apply colors wet on wet. So again, we wet the entire plum, the inside of the plum first, and then we apply the colors. And you want to start with diluting colors with water. So this is my yellow ochre here. So dilute it to, think of it like a heavy cream like Richeson. So I'm thinking about dairy. And I do have this imidazolone lemon. I might add a color that I haven't mentioned, but I'm trying to focus on the ones that I talked about. This is magenta here, quinacridone magenta. And the next thing is to actually wet the entire plum. So we're going to do one layer only. This is specifically for my beginners. I want you to get the feel of it, of applying these colors wet on wet. So try to stay on the inside. I'm going to start with like yellowish undertones. So here's my imidazolone lemon. I'm going to grab a little bit of that. This is the magenta, and mostly this is like a yellow, but this is where I see some of these yellow undertones. So that's whatever you see, that's where you want to apply it. So try your best to see some of these undertones. They're hard to see sometimes. And then we grab a little bit of that magenta and some of this ultramarine. So this is our violet. You don't need to, I'm sorry, you can see it. So there's my magenta and then ultramarine. So you don't want to spend too much time on diluting or mixing these colors because you want to see separation of colors. And then you start applying this violet. So find those areas, whatever you see that violet, that shade of violet. And next time you grab paint, maybe grab a little more of the ultramarine. So when you add that cobalt blue, it kind of reminds you right away of what we see more like in the reference. I don't want to grab more colors. So I'm just grabbing more of that magenta ultramarine, and I'm finding areas where I can place these colors. Now this area right here needs more of that just magenta. So once you place color, you can also go back towards these areas. And you can keep playing with it and moving the colors. I'm going to grab now some more of that magenta here. So this is the magenta. And I need to place that magenta quickly before this is too dry. So I can't, when you can't just add freely colors anymore. And that'll look really pretty if you add a little bit on this side. It is like a shadow there, but try to add it on the right side a little bit. And you see a different shade that you just created. So there you go, and I'm gonna add that same color right in here. So this is ultramarine, manganese, not manganese, magenta. I keep saying manganese, magenta, and some burnt sienna. And here, I'm just grabbing more of that paint. This edge here needs to be darker. So very slowly, you go towards that edge here. So now for this leaf, what we're gonna do is, I'm using this round brush 8 golden one. We're going to wet the bottom part of the leaf here. So we're gonna wet it. I'm using a stiffer brush. And now we're going to start with lemon yellow. Right here I have lemon yellow. I need to dilute it more with water. I'm grabbing more like a half and half like ratio, so between water and paint. And add it not everywhere, like don't try to cover the whole thing. Just find some areas, like basically in between like veins, when you see the veins. A lighter version of that green. and we're going to add it here. Find the areas wherever you see like the green, but don't add it everywhere. Just choose areas and go over like the yellows, more of that lime-like green. We can grab a little bit of that ultramarine and right here mix it up a bit with that ultramarine with sap green, and I added a little bit of yellow. It's not really that necessary. I'm gonna grab a little more of that ultramarine just to make that green a little darker. So we just changed the shade of that green, and with the tip of my brush, and this is heavy cream-like ratio, okay? So heavy cream-like ratio, you can add this into some areas, and also more of the green. You grab more of the green, and then you can kind of layer it over, but not everywhere. You just want to choose areas where you're applying this, and then this is how you can create that leaf, the edges. But the next thing to do is really to color this part, and we have to wait for the leaf, this part of the leaf, to dry before we can do anything else. And what we need to do is wet this leaf, so this part of the leaf. You don't even have to go really close to this green side, because the leaf is so highlighted that all the color is actually on the right side of it. So this is where we're going to apply colors, from the right side only, and let the color to bleed towards the left side. But we need some color, and that's because we're painting against white background. So if we don't add any color, then it looks like an unfinished painting. So we're just going to add a little bit of a color from the right side and let it bleed towards the left side. I'm still staying away from the left side because my leaf, like the green part, has dried, but I'm not too convinced that it's 100% dry. So now I'm going to grab a tiny bit of this kind of like imidazzle lemon and some of this sap green, heavy cream-like ratio. Okay, so heavy cream-like ratio. And we're going to start from here. This is where we have that kind of vein. And I think I need actually more like a just a sap green. And try to add it only towards that right side. And let the color to kind of bleed and push it, pull it a bit. Just hack that right side, just the top part of the leaf, because we don't need to do much more to it. Actually, that's pretty done. And if you feel brave, you could grab a little more of that heavy cream-like ratio and just kind of work that vein on top and just add a couple lines from the top. So that's it pretty much. So now you can see the entire plum. There's another class, which I believe I'm going to edit at the same time, which is advanced. It's actually intermediate level to paint plums, so more realistic plums with about 3 layers. And if you're done with this one, like once you're done with this one and you did it a couple times, let's say, or maybe everything worked out perfectly with that first version of this plum, then I do encourage you to move up to that level and to paint the next 2 plums with 3 layers, as I am going to show in that class as well. So thank you so much for your time, and I really hope you enjoyed this class, and let me know anytime you have a question.